Hello and welcome to this session on Essential Digital Skills Excel. This session is part of our Shine Bright at Work program, which includes other presentations such as collaboration, communicating the workplace, data get to the point, and presentations. You can find all these and more on our platform. Let's get started. By the end of this introduction into Excel, we're going to show you how to set up a simple spreadsheet and utilize a VLOOKUP formula. Spreadsheets. Just like what platform to use for presentations, you will also need to decide which platform to use for your spreadsheets as well. Apple Numbers, Microsoft Excel, Google Sheets. And like before, they each open each other's files, but they're not always the same. You might find one has a particular formula, one doesn't. So be careful with which one you choose. So, who has used some form of spreadsheet before? I'm sure at some point everybody has had a go on something or another. So this part of the session is to have a quick look and show you how to create a fairly basic Excel spreadsheet that will allow you to reference data. Perhaps you have a stock you need to keep track of, or like us, for example, need to manage a list of users who have signed up for courses. There's absolutely tons of users. And you may have completed the previous course in this program, Data What's the Point? If not, I recommend it for you to understand more about why and how we use data. So, our spreadsheet that we're going to create is going to consist of 3 sheets. A dashboard, a sheet that will use a VLOOKUP formula that will enable us to enter a person's name and then it show us the information we hold about them. The data itself, which is where we'll store all the user information. And lastly, a sheet where we'll create some useful information that will help our data input. I'm going to be using Excel to put this together, but it's very similar to other applications. And don't worry, this workbook will have a link attached that you can follow along in your own time after the recording. So, after opening Excel, the first thing I'm going to do is open up 2 extra worksheets by clicking on the plus icon shown in the image. Try and get into the habit of renaming your sheets. It makes it much easier for you and others to understand the makeup of your workbook. To rename a worksheet, right-click on the tab and then select Rename. For this project, I'm going to be naming the sheets Dashboard, Data and Lists. I'm going to start building some drop-down lists so that I can select from a pre-populated set of options rather than having them enter each time. In the List tab, in cell A1, I enter a list of animals. You'll never be able to list every animal, so it's always best to have an extra option for users to select, like NA or Other. When you have your list, highlight them all by selecting A1 and dragging them to the bottom of the list. Click the name box and type a name for your list, like animals, but remember what you call it. And repeat the process with a list of colours. You can put the second list in column B if you want. I chose C just to have a gap between them so they're easier to see. Again, remember to name your list as before. Now, on the Data tab, I'm going to add some column headers. Columns A and B and E will be free text, as there's no way for us to predetermine those answers, so we don't have to do anything with them just yet. Columns C and D is where we're going to add our list of animals and colours. Left-click the C to select the whole column. Then, in the Data tab indicated, under the Data Tools section, select Data Validation. In the Allow field, select the drop-down and choose List, because we want to reference one of the lists we've just made. In the Source field, type equals and then the name of the list you want to reference. For us, it will be Colours, then click OK. Now every cell in column C has the drop-down options to choose from, and we'll do exactly the same in column D for the pets. And once that's done, we just need to populate some fictitious data so we've got something to search for in the next stage. Just like that. Now, we need to add a basic lookup. Before that, we need a little instruction for the user and some cells to show the data. You can do this in any cells you want. I put mine here as I think it looks a little better. If you imagine this is a massive workbook of data that is used frequently by a lot of people, It's nice to spend a few minutes to make the experience nicer for the end users. Just because it's a spreadsheet doesn't mean you can't add a bit of design to it. Wherever you choose, start with adding the row titles. Enter the name, as this is where they will type who they want to look up, and then surname, colour, pet and band, so the users know what the data is when it's been returned. Then we can highlight the cells the returned info will appear in. We're now going to write our first formula. This is a common formula used when looking up data, and it's called VLOOKUP, and this is how VLOOKUP works. All formulas must start with an equals. You then have the name of the formula, the makeup of the formula. This is the bits that is actually telling Excel what to do for that particular formula. So in there we've got the cell that we're checking against, in this case the name we enter in D3, where we're looking for that data, so back on our data list, and the range it's in, so from A1 to E7, our information is in that group somewhere. The column we want to return, now I know it's a 2. I've never understood why Excel went to a number here instead of just putting in the A, B, C or D, but that's the way it is. So if you want the information that's in column D, you would put 4. And then true or false at the end. True would give you an approximate match. I've never used it. False gives you the exact match, and that's the one I've always used. Now, we've entered our formula, but we're getting an NA. This is totally normal and doesn't mean your formula isn't working. It's because there is nothing in your search cell, so there's no results to return. When you add a search term in cell D3, it will automatically update with the search result. But we can also edit the formula so that it shows a different response when there is no search term, so it doesn't show the NA. To do this, what we're going to do is nest our VLOOKUP formula into another formula called IFERROR. So all the IFERROR is doing is saying to Excel, run the formula VLOOKUP, but if there's no information found, rather than applying the NA in the cell, do this instead. And that return value can be any text you want as long as it's inside the quote marks. Now, apply the VLOOKUP to each of the 4 cells we want to display results for. Don't forget to include the IFERROR. You should now have something like this. When the search box is empty, you have a specific response, something other than NA. And when you enter a search term, in your 4 boxes update with the correct data from the data sheet. You might ask yourself, why is that cell colour green? That's because I've applied some conditional formatting to that cell. Conditional formatting is a great tool to know exists, especially helpful for when you've got a massive spreadsheet with loads and loads of data on, and you want to highlight specific things based on some rules that you've determined. In this example, I've set the conditional formatting to format the cell to the colour of the word. You'll find the condition in Format Control in the Home tab under the Styles section. There's a number of options in there and things you can do, but we're going to look at just one of these. First thing is to make sure you're in the cell you want to apply the conditional formatting to. Then in the drop down, select New Rule, then Correct Rule Type as shown, and in the Rule Description section, change the between to equal to, and then enter the colour name. Then select the Format button at the bottom and apply your formatting and click OK, and repeat to include all your other colour options. Don't forget colour contrasting. As you can see in this, the black on green doesn't stand up very well. So whilst you're creating that conditional formatting, you can change the colour of the font so that it's white. So if that cell goes green, the font goes white. The colour contrast then is nice and clear. And you should have something like this. Now you're more aware of some of the features within Excel, but trust me, we've just scratched the surface. Excel has so much more to offer, so if you're interested, I suggest you do some research and take advantage of some of the many free training courses available online. If you've struggled to follow along with this, don't worry. There'll be a link in the description that will give you access to the workbook, which will take you through how to do this step by step. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to check out all our other offerings. I'll see you soon.